Welcome to another episode of Up To. 9 years ago, Up To started as a live event series showcasing leaders who are as humble as they are successful. The humility piece is extremely important as we identify leaders who can inspire others. We try to focus our interviews on the non-business aspects of their lives. And in doing so, we have found there's a real thirst to explore their hearts and minds in atypical ways. Our host, as always, is Adam Kaufman. And joining Adam today is special guest Sheryl Palmer, Chairman and CEO of Taylor Morrison Homebuilding Corporation. We'll be right back.
I'm grateful that Calfee, Halter & Griswold has once again agreed to partner with us. With offices in Ohio and Washington, D.C., this full-service national law firm focuses on all aspects of business and the law, including corporate and finance, intellectual property, and government relations. Let me be clear, I actually approach companies with whom I would like to partner. We just don't accept marketing dollars from anyone. I have been referring my CEO and entrepreneur friends to Calfee for years. I really believe in the firm. One of their notable practice areas is in mergers and acquisitions. And recently, for instance, I introduced a successful entrepreneur in the Midwest to Calfee when he told me that a European-based conglomerate wanted to buy his business. Calfee works with large corporations as well as privately held companies throughout the U.S. and Canada and in Europe and Asia too. So whether it's selling your own business or the more routine needs of creating your first will or anything in between, this firm can really do it all in terms of legal needs. Once again, the firm is Calfee, Halter & Griswold, and you can find them at calfee.com or on the Up To Foundation website. Our guest today leads one of the largest home builders in America, a company that helps tens of thousands of families find a place to call home each year, and recently agreed to a momentous decision to be acquired by perhaps the most admired corporation in America, Berkshire Hathaway, for close to $7 billion. She first joined us 7 years ago on the Up To podcast, talking then about leadership and culture and what she calls her shoes-off approach to connecting with thousands of teammates across more than 17 divisions in more than 20 cities. The number of homes built by the company she leads has nearly doubled during her helm, and the annual revenue is about 4 times greater than when she took charge. Wow, this is a growth leader. During this impressive career, today's guest has been recognized for dozens of industry and general business awards, all while remaining so humble and so authentic. That's why we invited her back. She is still the most humble leader I've ever known. Some of my favorites on her long list of awards include the 2025 CNBC Changemaker list as one of the most innovative leaders in America, the Forbes 50 Over 50 award, maybe a mixed blessing award, but we are both over 50, which signifies long-term accomplishments, Glassdoor's top CEO list, and also the very selective California Homebuilders Hall of Fame. All of this while being an active member of her close family. I don't know how she does it all, and with continued passion for some civic and philanthropic pursuits close to her heart. Today, she's back for her second appearance on the Up To podcast at a pivotal moment in the company's story, and I would imagine in a new season in her own life. Sheryl Palmer, welcome to the Up To podcast.
Well, thank you. That was so nice, Adam. Thank you. It's so good to see you, and it's so great to be on your podcast again. Thanks for inviting me back. I'm just so humbled by it.
Well, the first time we did this, you were in the Cleveland, Ohio studio with me. I'm now in D.C., and you're out on the West Coast going from point A to point B at an airport. So thank you so much for carving out a little bit of your valuable time for us. Tell me, what have you been up to?
Well, like you said, it's been a very busy time. And as you mentioned, we just recently, just over a month ago, announced the deal where Berkshire Hathaway was acquiring Taylor Morrison. And, I think it was an amazing time for the organization. It's, I think, a very exciting time for our industry because what Berkshire's been able to do over many, many decades is build an ecosystem like no other. And to have the opportunity to help them put all of their builder companies today with Taylor Morrison and become one of the, I mean, we are today, but we're going to double in size here overnight. And that's just part of the story. Like I said, when I really look at their ecosystem and everything that Berkshire has done in the space, it's just, I think it creates a story and an organization that's unmatched and one that really can't be replicated. So I'm very excited that they chose Taylor Morrison to do this, and it's a double down of confidence on the industry and how important
And on you. You're being humble.
Well, I think how important housing is in our country and in our economy, and even though it's been a bumpy, couple of years, I think the future is very bright.
Yeah, you actually touched on, before I rudely interrupted, you did touch on something I planned on bringing up is, there's so many leaders who listen to our program who build some sort of widget, and they try to sell lots of that widget, and they're proud of whatever they sell, whether it's microphones or paint. But I mean, home ownership is a different type of widget. It's symbolic, greater than the actual product you're building that they're buying. How do you digest like the meaning of the first home purchase? I'm sure that's one of your favorite aspects of it, is to like see the couple buy their first home. It's much more than a normal widget. I'm maybe saying it in an inarticulate way.
No, I think you've said it quite perfectly. It's a very exciting time for a family or an individual. And, if you really think about it, what we're providing, and it's different levels, I understand that based on the consumer group, but we're talking about shelter, Adam. And for some, it might be, rent, and we have a rental brand, Yardley. But for most of what we do, like you said, when someone gets to achieve home ownership, especially in the environment we're in today, where costs have run and just life is more expensive, and it's more than just a house. It's more than, it's truly a home. It's a place where you create memories. And what we have to do as leaders and as team members across our organ is make sure that we don't lose sight of just how big of a deal this is. I mean, this is where you have memories for life. I mean, I think about those meaningful times around the dining room table or family celebrations. And later in life, when I'm talking to my children or my grandchildren, I'm talking about things that happen, and it's always about where you were. Or during COVID, the bubble that people lived in and the network within neighborhoods, that safety, sense of community and camaraderie. It's a big deal. And I think if we can stay grounded on what sense of community really means, it's so much more than the house or the home.
It's almost like a cause. There's like a altruistic mentality a little bit to what you're saying. I feel like, and I tell people I mentor, buying a home is, I think, the hardest decision to make, because some people would think marriage, but marriage is when you're in love and the other person loves you, it's like a no-brainer. We're going to get married. But a house, there's so many choices. There's so many options. There's factors like rent or buy. It's paralysis of choice almost. And that's not at all a criticism of your industry. But my point is, like, it's such a hard decision to make. You're in the middle of that.
Your identity, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's not like a decision, well, if I get it wrong, we'll just change it. It's harder than that. And it's a big deal. And, you talked about the first time buyer, and we're fortunate enough, Adam, to sell to all consumer groups. But I have an equal fondness, love for each of our consumers. But then I think about our resort lifestyle, or some people call it 55 or older. Maybe it's real close to my heart, or active adult. But these are folks that, they've kind of raised their children, and now they really just want that level of belonging to something more important, than their career.
For sure.
It's that final, I don't want to, not in a negative way, but that final chapter where you can just, it's all about what you want. And I look at what the lifestyle that our residents live in these communities, and it's like they're going to summer camp every single day when they wake up. And so there's just joy across all consumers. There might be, a family that's moving to their second home because they just had a child or a second child. Our school is now an important part of the decision. But it all does come down to community. And the house is important, but we find, interestingly enough, in more than half of our shoppers, that the community is as important as the house. And I think that says something about society and how important relationships and belonging really is. And certainly with all the time we've spent together at Path North, I think you have a real appreciation of what that does for the soul.
For sure. And I think that's one of the internal character traits that you have that probably the acquiring company, Berkshire Hathaway, wanted to keep. I mean, you're staying on, you're going to continue to lead with this evident passion, the company that's being acquired. Has your day-to-day life changed that much yet, or will that occur more so after everything is finalized?
Closed. Well, it's right now about understanding the Berkshire organization and their ecosystem. In fact, I'm heading back to Scottsdale today and meeting some of the leaders that are coming to Scottsdale so we can bring our leadership teams together, because they have about a dozen home builders that are going to become part of Taylor Morrison. And I haven't we've just got through some of the regulatory stuff that allows me to, start to foster those relationships in folks. So the fun just is about to begin, and get so excited because they have amazing businesses across the country.
Will you be responsible for those other units of Berkshire?
All of the home building, what they call site builders. So they were private builders that Berkshire acquired. This is Berkshire's first public home builder. But what they want is they appreciate the impact of scale and bringing all of these organizations together. But so I'm excited about the possibilities. I probably don't even know them all. First, it's about understanding all the team members, those businesses, our portfolio. Some of our markets are overlapping. Many of our markets for Taylor Morrison will be new, and many of the markets for Berkshire will be new. So it's actually the best of both worlds, but we'll be doubling. And so it's a big business. It's exciting, and to have that kind of scale to be able to help Americans into home ownership. And so much of their business is that first time, to your earlier question. And so I just don't think there's a better time.
I'm going backwards in my mind a little bit, even before you were on our program, which, can you believe, was 7 years ago? I cannot believe it was 7 years.
I remember sitting in a little booth it was yesterday.
I know, it was more than 7 years ago. And it was before that we were hiking together at a conference in Chamonix, France. And that's when you were talking about the pros and cons of being public versus being private. There was a third person with us who was a large private company. And you've achieved what most of the founders I'm around want to achieve. You went public. You rang the bell. That's the dream. That's the promised land for most CEOs, most founders. So you've done that. You've been there, done that. Now you're going private again. Again. Yeah, but clearly you're choosing to. So how do you think your time as a public company CEO is going to help you as a privately owned organization? Will you be a better leader because of that experience?
I think every experience we have in our career, helps mold who we are. And I think the more data intake we get just allows us to make better decisions. But, you know, I have had such a blessed career of working for a very large private organization. I started with a public with Del Webb, and then went to a private with Blackhawk, where I was really very, very involved in that active adult, that 55 plus, and then back to Pulte, where they acquired Del Webb. So
You've seen
and
both sides.
then I've seen both sides. And then Taylor Morrison, as you'll remember, was actually Morrison Homes when I joined. It wasn't until we merged and I changed the name, but that was a private of a public UK company. So we were a private sub.
Right.
That was really the best of both worlds. I was on the board of the public UK company, but I got the benefit of running private. And if you think about Berkshire, that's the same.
Yeah.
We're part of a public company. Berkshire's public, but the materiality of our individual businesses, you know, don't reach a level that we report. So we want all those reporting obligations go away.
A relief.
And to get to make the decisions, all the decisions for the right reasons. I remember naively, Adam, touring the country right after we went public and said, your life will change at all. And I really thought so. I was just wrong. Because, you know, as you're part of a public company and you give information out to shareholder, your credibility depends on it. And so sometimes you're faced on making short-term decisions versus long-term. Berkshire has a 10, 20, 30-year horizon, so you're making the right decisions all the time. But you still maintain the responsibility of ultimately every decision we make has got to be right for our shareholders, all of our stakeholders, our team members, and our public shareholders. So I think I'm a unique perspective because I feel like I've seen private, public, international, and now under, you know, Greg Abel, who just took over for Warren Buffett. I mean, I'm just working with people that were like, I could have never imagined. It's like bucket list.
Wow. It is probably something you wonder, how did I get here? Like, how is this all happening to me?
It's me.
Yeah. Well, it's deserving. You mentioned at the beginning of that commentary that all the things we experience accumulate our learning. I remember you also worked for McDonald's at one point early in your career, right?
Yeah, Ray Kroc.
Yeah. So what does something like that early on teach you as you now look back a few decades? I mean, that was an early part of, like, I know our youngest, that was his first job when he was 14 or 15 or something. Oh, it was your first job. Okay.
First job, except for babysitting. That was my first real job where I got, you know, a real paycheck you got to put in the bank.
Right.
And I was 16 when I started, or 15 or 16. And then I left, went away to college, and then started again. And then I ended up in the corporate office of McDonald's. And what was so unique, because as you reminded us, I'm well over 50. This is when Ray Kroc was still alive and in the office every day, and he lived in San Diego.
Oh.
So I got to see Ray every day. And I won't bore you with the details, but what I will tell you is that one of my greatest life lessons came in a meeting that Ray Kroc walked into. And I was, I think, the ripe old age of 20. And I had this big marketing responsibility for all of San Diego. And he came in and, you know, this is, most people might not even know what I'm talking about, Adam, but this is in the days of overheads.
Overhead projector. Yeah, right. Microfiche.
Yeah. And he went to the back of the room to like listen, but he couldn't see my slides. And he starts, you know, this is my first presentation ever. It was a big national meeting. I got asked.
Your stomach's churning. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm up there as he wheels in and he can't see. And he's like, I can't see that. So I'm like trying to turn the dial. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And then I still can't see it. And I'm trying to move the machine to make it.
Oh my gosh.
And my boss in the front is like, turn off the machine. Just turn it. So I did, and I had to give my presentation by heart because I no longer had my materials. And my level of preparedness for meetings and any kind of AV and having at least one backup, and, the amount of rehearsals we do for earnings call and board meetings, my poor team has suffered the consequences of that day for the last 40 years.
No, but that's a perfect example of the learning accumulation over time that stuck with you, and it plays out now as you prepare your executive team for the reports and the meetings and so forth. So I didn't realize, Sheryl, that you had Ray Kroc like in your orbit way back then, and now yours was the first acquisition post Warren Buffett. You're around some serious legends of American business. I'm going to stay close to you. Can I stay close to you? Just keep me somewhere in your orbit.
Adam, I've just been so blessed. I really have. I've had the opportunity to work with just some brilliant leaders. I've learned so much from them in restaurants, in home building, and just in life. And, and the funny thing, without being overly sappy, is with all the great leaders that I've learned from, and like I said, just unbelievable. My dad probably had the greatest influence on who I am as a person, and who you are as a person, I think, shows up on who you are as a leader.
So speaking of your father, like what type of family environment did you grow up in? Was it expected you'd go into business? Could you do whatever you wanted to do? Or your parents just hands off on career stuff? Or some families have real, specific expectations?
So I grew up in a family where both my parents worked. My mom was a very successful fashion designer, and she was gone most of the time. She traveled the world to have her samples and stuff made. So I actually was pretty definite that I didn't want to have a business career. In fact, I went to school to be a special education teacher because I was going to be home when my kids got home in the afternoon. I was going to make sure they had birthday parties and they got to do things that I just didn't get to do because I was a spoiled brat because my mom wasn't home. And so I grew up with a lot of resentment. It took me a long time to really appreciate why, the what, and the why of what she did and how she was trying to provide for our family and set an example for me and my sisters. Mm-hmm. So no, my career aspirations were very different. Like I said, I planned on being a school teacher, particularly around special education, and I did a lot of that work with McDonald's. But my McDonald's career started and I went to an advertising agency eventually, and then one of my clients, Del Webb, hired me, and I've really never looked back.
So you clearly were some sort of early leader that others saw in you to pull you into the corporate office at McDonald's, then into Del Webb. There must have been something going on, maybe you're not even aware of it, that just showed others that you had this huge potential. Do you remember any moment when, and it may not have been in the business setting, it could have been on a sports field or in a classroom, where you realized maybe one of my gifts is leadership? Did you know early on that was part of your kind of responsibility?
Not early on. I really don't think I did. I think if I were to call it a gift, it was just that I love people and that everybody's different, learning about those differences. And I think, once again, I go back to my dad. It's just the way he always interacted with people and looked for the joy in any conversation. And I think that helps create rapport when you have a genuine interest in people's story. And I always did. And then if you have either the humility or the vulnerability to really want to learn from those relationships, great things happen. And so I don't know if it was the interview tactic of how I can interact with people that helped me in those early days get some of those roles. And I've always subscribed to, if you're going to spend the time working, give it your best. And then ultimately you start doing that next job and then you get that next job. And I think it's really worked for me, but surrounding myself with the best people has absolutely worked, for me head and shoulders over anything else.
I like hearing you talk about empathy and humility as you get to know other people. I think one of the most important aspects of leadership that isn't talked about as much is being a good listener. And you kind of said that there. I feel like, and not that we have to do what the others we're listening to say all the time, but that helps us build consensus. That helps with the empathy, like you said. What are the most important aspects of leadership that maybe others don't think about? In addition to the buck stops here, be a strong leader and setting goals. Like, are there some character traits that maybe we should consider more?
I think authenticity is probably leads the list for me. I'm sure you've experienced it as well, but when you see folks that are different in their business setting than they are maybe what you've heard about them or you know them personally, and you like, and they feel like they're supposed to show up as someone different. I think it's really hard to be your very best when you're trying to be somebody else. And so being authentic and genuine, I think it starts there, because if you're going to build real relationships, and I would suggest that real relationships are the only ones that really matter. And then I would say the other one that has probably worked for me as good as any is just my heightened level of curiosity. I always am like trying to learn. It's like, the not so favorable slogan around the office is Sheryl has just one more question. And I do.
Really?
I have just one more question because I'm curious and I want to learn. And you're in that setting, and I don't have as much time I'm a ferocious reader on some stuff, but not as much time as I'd like. And so I do my learning from the people around me. And if you surround yourself with, a real diversified group of thinkers and leaders and experiences, then that's part of your educational network. And so I think if I were to point to two, it's being yourself and continuing to be a continuous learner. So being curious.
Being yourself, it's so important. Yes, I have seen it in business, but where I find it bothers me even more is in the political world. When I get to know somebody who I think I want to help support, we enjoy having events at our home and so forth. But if they're different, like privately versus like on stage, I can't stand that. I'm not even talking about like changing your political views on a piece of legislation, just the personality where they're charming in front of the crowd, but they're really mean to their staff behind the scenes. And that can occur in business too. That's what I can't stand. So I love your emphasis on, being your authentic self.
Well, I've spent a lot of time over these last few months in DC looking for ways to make housing more affordable. And I echo your comments. And there's so much opportunity to do good. But if we're more concerned about the optics than we are the outcomes, it makes it tough.
Well, I know you're spending some time on that. You have for years. I remember learning about one of the charities you were involved in, trying to create more housing opportunities for the underserved. How are you thinking about that part of your life now that you have this even bigger platform from which to do your work with Berkshire Hathaway? Is that going to give you a stronger voice, more capital, more people, more attention to do some of those things?
That's interesting way you worded that. I mean, I think the philanthropic work that's important to me is important to me and my soul. And I do it because I think it's meaningful. I think it makes a difference. And it makes me feel good. I have had a very blessed life, a wonderful career. And I think we have an obligation, but I don't do it because of the obligation. I do it because I feel it feels good.
It's what you want to do. Yeah.
It's what I want to do, and to pay it forward. And for me, that shows up in a number of ways. I mean, helping women in leadership or women in construction. It's a topic I ran away from for a long, long time because I didn't want to be recognized as the female executive. I just wanted to be the executive. I happened to be a female, right?
I get that. I understand.
But now I run to it because I think some women get in their own way. Based on that last conversation, you feel like you're supposed to show up as somebody else, and that's not the magic. It's just not. So that one's really important to me. Anything to do with providing housing, obviously, I have a lot of passion for building communities and giving folks the opportunity to get into a permanent home or shelter. It has to be the right way. But I just love some of the work we do, building I don't know if you remember that show, Extreme Home Makeover. It ran years ago with the host, Ty Pennington. They came back about 3 years ago and they wanted to do a reboot. It was called Extreme Home Makeover Home Edition. First time they'd ever done it with new homes instead of remodels. And we did 7 episodes. And it was a new host. It was actually Joanna and Clea from the Home Edit. They are designers and organizers, and we had been doing a promotion with them, and they wanted to work with us. So we got to build 7 houses for all these families across the country. And then the final finale, we got to build a community center at Banner MD Hospital. And it was amazing because it's a place that these cancer patients that are there for 6-8 weeks of treatment got to come together and experience this really
so meaningful.
Yeah, it was amazing. For me, it was the pinnacle of my career.
Something you'll never forget.
Never.
Well, you mentioned being curious. I was going to ask you, how do you continue to learn? I'm always interested in how high achievers continue to learn, whether it's about their industry or something else. So how do you consume information in this age? Is it watching podcasts? Is it listening audio on your drive to work? I'm always eager to know, how do busy people continue to learn?
Yeah, and I wish I could tell you that it was podcasts because I enjoy them, but I find that I'm always on the phone on my drive to work. And that goes to how do you get balance in life to make sure you have, me time.
Yes.
But I find that once that business day starts, because I work across the country with different time zones,
right,
I don't get that drive time. So for me, some of it's reading, a lot of it's reading, but I would say the majority of it's what we already talked about, and that is surrounding yourself. And it doesn't matter if it's my team members, if it's going to conferences within my industry and my peers, and often it's my board. I spend a great deal of time, and even interestingly enough, even in preparation for things like board meetings or things like earnings calls, the amount of information you have to take in to prepare, because I will be prepared and I'll have a backup plan. That intake is so valuable to me.
That's part of your learning.
Once I have it, I don't lose it. I really have the ability to tell it.
Awesome. Well, in addition to reading, what do you like to do when you're not working? How do you, if it exists, how do you let your mind relax or reconnect with your loved ones who you haven't seen in a couple weeks? Is there a place for that in this busy life that you're leading?
There has to be, and that took me a long time to realize how important that was. But I would say so much of my joy. I just had my 6th grandbaby.
Your 6th, awesome.
Number 6.
Congratulations.
He's the cutest, sweetest little thing. And so having time with my grandchildren is really on my downtime is really important for me. And they're relatively close. They're between Nevada and Arizona.
Okay.
But about 3 years ago, I probably did the thing that I should have done 10 years ago, is buy a place on a lake in Idaho. And I try to do a lot of, if I'm not on the road during the summer when it's 115 in Scottsdale, I try to use that as home base for a period of time. And then I travel from here, and just waking up to the serenity of the water and long walks and working out. Working out's another release for me.
That's a good way to recharge. Yeah.
Yeah, getting on the water in a boat. I mean, that to me, it's just amazing. Even just sitting out on the patio and looking at it is just very soothing.
I can remember our walk Mont Blanc area of Chamonix, and I could see you were coming more alive. I was getting tired. You were coming more alive just being in the natural environment we were in. That was a special setting, so I can imagine your regular returns to Idaho do that for you.
We were over the clouds. Do you remember that?
I know. We were looking down.
And I have pictures where we're looking down at the clouds. I mean, how many times do you get to do that?
I know. It's a place I want to return.
And you have to make those moments meaningful, memorable. And, you know, we talk a lot about, you know, we only have one shot at this, right? We have to make the best of it.
Looking ahead, beyond maybe the responsibilities of your completing the acquisition process, what are you most excited about as you look forward? You know, we've been talking about how we were in a conversation 7 years ago. What do you think we're going to be talking about when you're on again in 7 more years, God willing?
Wow. That's a great question. I mean, what am I looking forward to? This new endeavor is so big, Adam, that it's like all consuming. And so really understanding the impact, the vision, I know what the vision is, but really being able to bring to life kind of a end-to-end housing solution that can really provide housing communities at, I'm going to say, more affordable prices than's ever been done before because of the ecosystem that Berkshire has built. And for them, it's everything from, you know, they own brokerage houses to furniture marts and building supplies in between. It's
Brick
just,
company.
It's an amazing organization with an amazing long-term view. I think we have the ability to change how we bring housing to market that's never been done before. And being part of something like that, you know, at this point in my career, you know, I'm 65 this year. And I feel like I know it's really scary, huh?
Would not have guessed that. I thought you won the over 50 award last year, so that meant you're 50 or 51.
Yeah. No, it's been a while. But to, like, at this point with the experiences I've had, to be, I mean, such a capstone to really be able to evolve and change our industry in a good way. I think it's not an overnight project. It's something that's decades and decades of our industry. And we're an industry that's kind of stuck in doing things the way we've always done them. Innovation has not been a big part of our
Yes, you and I have spent some time on that with different startups. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And it's such a big part of the conversation, no matter what business you're in. And it's certainly part of our conversation at Taylor Morrison, but how we can use the tools that are available to us today in this kind of changing landscape. That's what I think we're going to be talking about. And I'm not even sure, as I sit here today, as grand as my vision is of where this can go, that I can even imagine yet all the possibilities.
I'm thinking Taylor Morrison might have the first kind of construction projects on Mars, probably. The way you're thinking ahead with that type of capital, you could work with Elon Musk and Mr. Abel and build on other planets. Yeah, you're not even laughing because that is possible. Exactly.
It is possible. And, you know, I remember 10 years ago, my team laughing at me when I talked about I am never going to retire till we have robots helping us build houses on the job. And they laughed at me for years, but now they're not laughing anymore because these are things that are real. And we've had them now in a factory for a while. But when you really start studying the possibilities of what they can do in repeatable tasks and even with intuition, oh my goodness. And then what does that do on the quality, maybe the cost?
Efficiency,
Efficiency, productivity. I mean,
perfection, near perfection. Robotic surgery is more perfect than hands, and
quality,
driverless cars.
Human, and the human relationship will always be part of it. I'm not to suggest that we're going to replace all the jobs, because I really don't think that's going to happen. But I do think there are some that we could. And so, like I said, I think the conversation, you look at the speed of change today, Adam. I mean, what's happened in the last 12 months? I mean, nobody knew that this man named Claude or ChatGPT was 2 years ago. And now the speed of change is remarkable. And
how do you bring possible technology innovations into your business? Do you have a innovations unit? There are software companies that it's obvious that they need innovation divisions, but in a more old line industry like home building, how do you filter all the ideas that I'm sure are coming your way, you're being pitched on? Is there a certain unit responsible for that, or is it every man, every woman
no,
for
all
himself?
leaders are.
Yeah.
I think all leaders are, because I think it's so big. But I would say a couple things that probably I think will move the needle the most. One is you have to remove the fear of what innovation can do. And people don't see it as a threat, but see it as an opportunity.
I like that.
And we have made just tremendous strides with that. And so we have a project management office, a PMO. Every department has their own kind of task force on the PMO. And then my chief technology officer, he has an innovation hour every morning. He starts every day at 7 to 8, and it's talking about innovation and what are the things that we can be doing. And some are very small and task-oriented, and some are very, very big. So between what they're doing to, really understand how they can help the entire organization, and then what every department's doing, and when everyone's rowing the same direction because they realize that this is making them better, more efficient, it's not a threat. The ideas, the challenge today is we can't operationalize all the ideas that we have. But we haven't yet come up with an idea or desire to do something that AI hasn't been able to help us accomplish. So we're the only thing that holds us back from the endless opportunities, is the way we think about them.
Isn't that ironic? The fear of AI, but the capabilities that AI brings to your company, as you just described, take the fear away, and the possibilities could be almost endless.
Truly.
But what isn't endless is our time together, unfortunately. I know you have another place you need to get to, but Sheryl, congratulations on all that you've achieved. And for me, more importantly, thank you for remaining your authentic, humble self. This whole program is about leaders who are as humble as they are successful.
Well, that's so kind. But Adam, you need to look in the mirror, because I am so grateful to the first time you and I had the opportunity to talk, and the impact it's had on my life. And I mean that so from the heart. And the impact you have on bringing leaders in different styles, and there's not a right or wrong, there's different, and find your own. And thank you.
Oh,
truly.
Well, thank you for that. I didn't expect that, but until next time, thanks, Sheryl. Safe travels today.
You take care.
Thank you for listening to the Up To podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe via your podcast platform of choice. To receive our newsletter, suggest speakers, and give your candid feedback, please email Adam directly at adam@uptofoundation.org. We would love to hear from you. The Up To podcast is produced by BLC Digital Strategies, a full content creator company located right outside of the nation's capital in Tysons, Virginia. See you next time.